So in this video, we're going to be covering our template builder. Our template builder is a way you can export files from Blocworx, and those files can contain information that was in Blocworx. What's very powerful about them is you can design these files yourself using docx format. So basically, for instance, you might export an invoice from Blocworx, and that invoice is completely in your own branding. There's nothing to indicate that it was generated by Blockworx, and it's completely customizable. So I took this invoice from Microsoft Word as one of their examples. I changed it around a bit just to clean things up a bit. And what we'll do is we will play with this as our template, and we will export data from Blockworx into this. So we have a block here. I had already created the started block, but I haven't created any fields yet. So the block is called generate invoice, and I just created 4 elements here. So I'm going to start looking at what I want here to be populated. So the date is 1, and we make that a date field. Let's see what else we want. We'll just say invoice number. We're just going to make these things a text fields now. We won't get too fancy yet with what types of fields we can use to generate this information. Customer name. We will just put in, I'm going to add a new row so we can handle the addresses. Address line 1. I'm going to duplicate that, which is a nice faster way of creating fields if you know you're going to be using kind of the same names over and over. So I'll duplicate that. And as you can see, it increments. If there's a number in the field name, it'll increment that by 1. And we'll duplicate that one. And we'll just see, for now, I'm going to put in subtotal. I'll change these. I'll just excluding tax. No, I'll say subtotal. I will just say total. It's a bit easier. And I'll delete these records here. Let's save this. So we've touched on field slugs a few times, and now we're going to be looking at them again. So when you scroll down to the bottom, we have our list of field slugs here. So what we're trying to achieve is how do we get the data that's going to be in this block into this file? And we do that the same way we did the mail alert field. It's the same syntax. So we take our field slug, for example, date, and where we want the value inside the file, we replace that with this syntax. So a $, 2 curly brackets, and inside it, the field slug. So I'm going to do the same for the rest of them. Customer name. Address, I just want to check, was it address line, or yeah, address line 1, and then so on. And we'll remove this one just for this exercise. We might replace this. We'll just simplify this a bit, and I'm just going to say my company details. Now we're going to have to lowercase this one. And I need to see how to do that in Word. So this is nothing to do with the Blocworx side of it. And I'll create a field. I'll save this, and I'll create a field called my company details, knowing that that's going to be the correct slug. I'll make this a plain data field. My company details. Let's just say Blocworx. Copyright. Limerick, Ireland. I'm going to move this row up. So it's possible to move rows up and down, like as you can see. Now, finally, the next part is we have our template created and we have a block created with all the associated fields. The next part is we actually upload the template to Blocworx. So as you can see here, we have a section called Manage and Build Templates. You can actually create a template from scratch if you click Generate Mockup. And that gives you a blank docx file with all your field slugs ready for you, which is really handy because maybe you can use these and put them into another template you might be working on, or you can just build a template from scratch using this file. So the mockup is just an assistance. We're going to click this and I'll show you later in the video why this is handy. But basically the idea is we can export these files when inside the records. And now we'll upload our template. So we'll just say sample invoice template. So in the file name that's going to be exported, we can give it any file name. We just say like invoice file, but we can also give it a value from a field slug. So I'm going to click add values from fields and I'm going to click invoice number. And this is the syntax for putting field slugs inside the file name. So for instance, if the invoice number was 001, the file name would be invoice-001. You'll see this BW, it stands for Blocworx, and then a closing tag. And that's how it knows that this is actually a Blocworx field and not just a piece of information in the file. You'll see this quite a bit in different fields and options we have. So the two ways that you can dynamically load data are often either this BW one or, as you can see, this style here, which is the $ with the curly brackets. And now I'll select the file sample and click update or upload. So now we have our template uploaded. I can click it here. We can just quickly check it. And yeah, that's the one we just uploaded. So let's go back to the front end and let's try it out. I'm going to say BW001 is our invoice number. Our customer name can be, let's say Dell Inc. We'll say address is Dell 1, Castletroy, Havenbrook, Limerick. There are a few ways of accessing this. So firstly, without pressing submit, let's just see how it looks. So there's a button up here which allows you to export the data from the block straight away into your template. So it's a PDF button. The default export is a Word doc file. So let's just, and it's the default selected one is sample invoice template. So as you can see, it's possible to add several templates, but this one we're just going to pick one, so it's pre-selected. Now I click download. And as you can see, the file now is invoice BW0001, and it has populated all the information that we wanted so far. So the next part we're going to do is submit a record. And we'll just do another one. I don't know their address, so I'm just going to put in my own. Press submit again. And as you can see, the export is also available down here. But that's only available because I'll go back to the edit. It was that tick box I checked. So when I go to manage templates, we can see the tick box here, show export button in results, which is quite a popular option for people. It's the one that's most used. So there's one more important part to show you regarding the export, and that's to get a list of items, which is a very common requirement when doing these type of files. So it's all well and good populating one-off parts of the file, but sometimes we need to generate, multiple items in one file. That's like a list, like line items for services and whatever. So for that, I need to go back to what we've learned in the previous videos, and that's our results box combined with the getting totals, so we can get our subtotal and our overall total. So I'm going to create a block here called invoice line items. And I'm going to create a field called invoice number. And I'll say item name, the number of units, and cost. Next, we go back to our generate invoice. And we're going to use a combination of the cross block and results box, just like we did with the inventory system. So firstly, I need to create those fields again. Well, ones that we're going to be passing over. So we already have our invoice number. So I'll create item name, number of units, and cost. Actually, I'll just have to go back and double check the fields for the line items. I might have to add one more. So cost per unit. And we'll just say total. And that's going to be a math field. It'll be a math field which will multiply number of units by cost per unit. And here's our maths field as you've seen before. So number of units, and then a multiply cost per unit. So now we go back to generate invoice. So I'll do something similar here. In fact, I probably didn't even need the maths field in the other block, and I'll show you why, because I'll be passing the information from here anyway. Item line item cost. Instead, we should have done it here. Cost per unit multiply by number of units. So now we're going to add a cross block and select the block. It's going to be invoice line items. So we're adding items from this. We're adding new record. Choose when the action happens on a button click. We'll say add invoice line item. We're not going to have any conditions. It'll just happen every time we click. And here's the data we're updating. So it's the invoice number is going to match invoice number. Item name is going to match item name. Number of units is going to match number of units. Cost per unit is going to match cost per unit. And line item cost will match total. So I just happen to give them different names, but they're the same thing. And just add the field. Lastly, we'll just load our results box. And the results box, as you're aware at this stage, is so that we can see the data from the other block. So invoice line items, and we get it where the invoice number matches. And what fields do we want to see? We want to see everything, I'd say, except the invoice number, because we already have that on this block. And we will show the delete icon. And again, now, and what we're getting onto here is we're going to be putting this information inside the doc file. So let's say BW005, customer name is Dell Inc. Address 1, we won't worry about this for now. Address 2, address 3, address 4, item name, training services, number of units 2, cost per unit 300. I'll press return here and we get our 600. We're going to add this line. And as you can see, training services. So we'll just do one more. Consultation, number of units 1, cost per unit. Now, the next part we have to do here is get this data into our invoice. So I'm going to change these around a bit to match what we have. No, actually, I'll leave them. So I'll go back to our actual sample template. So quantity is our number of units. So we're going to now load fields from this block, the one that's getting this data, the invoice line items. How do we do that? We have to put these field names associated with this field inside a table inside a doc file. And this only works inside a table. So we'll do one and we'll show you. First, the syntax is we need to say invoice lines, the field slug, and then a hyphen. So now we're saying, well, we want the number of units from invoice lines. So number of units, and then we close that. It's possible to avoid, you don't always have to put in the name of the field with the hyphen, the name of the results box field, but we do have to do it if the field name is the same in this block as it is in the block we're loading the data from. That's how the system knows to look at this field value, not this one. So let's carry on. We're going to put in the item name. And that happens to be what they're calling description. So I just copied and pasted it, and item name, unit price. What do we have? That is called cost per unit. And line total, we just call it total. So I'm going to save that. And I go back to our template editor. And I'm going to delete this one to avoid any confusion. And we'll start again. Sample template with invoice lines. And we'll do the same again with the invoice number. And the file is this one, the same file, sample. And there we are. So I've already added records for an invoice number. So I'm going to go back to that one again. We'll open the other block just to recall what invoice the number was. Invoice line items, BW005. So I'm going to copy that and I can close this again. So I paste in that invoice number and hit return. And that loads our line items. Customer name Dell, address 1, address 2, address 3, address 4. Now let's put in one more line. Teaching, number of units 1, cost per unit 600. Add the line. And let's submit this so we have it saved. It'll be handier just to come back to it. And as we can see, this is the record. So let's export that. And we can export it from the record here. And it already has the template that we've selected. So we'll click download and we'll take a look. So that appeared there in the downloads. And there we have it. It knows, because it's in a table and because it recognized that those fields are part of the other block, so it's a list, it knows to list the multiple items. We've shown you in previous videos how to get the total and basically how to get the total from all of these, and also have shown you how to use a math field to multiply fields by fields, but you can also multiply fields by numbers. So I just want to show you if we were adding VAT, for instance. So we're going to put in total. Well, I'll just change it to total excluding VAT, so we're absolutely clear. And we're going to get the total. I don't have to explain this part again. We've went through this a few times in other videos. So invoice line items, total required is total. Local field to populate is total excluding VAT. And our search criteria is where the invoice number is the invoice number. So I'm going to edit this latest record. And as you can see, the total is 1700. I'll update that. And I'm going to do one more thing. We're just going to do a maths field. And this time we're going to use the maths field slightly differently. This time we're just multiplying total excluding VAT by a number. So we'll multiply it by 1.23, which is our current VAT rate. So again, I'll edit this record and the 2091, and I'll update that. So now we have two new fields, total excluding VAT and total including VAT. Let's open up the sample one more time and do one final update. And I'm just going to make this the normal case as well, just so that we can be sure that the field slug will recognize it. Save this. Go back to edit mode. Delete our template. Let's say sample with lines and totals. Add the invoice number again. Currently, there's no way to edit a template. We will look into that in the future because downloading, deleting, and re-uploading obviously isn't the most efficient way of doing it for trial and error. So now we go back to the front end and click export. So as you can see, it worked. This one worked, but this one didn't. And the reason this didn't work is because I didn't type this in properly. I left out an L, so it didn't recognize the field slug. So all I would need to do is put in the L there and re-upload the template, which I won't do now. Finally, you can also export PDF. It's a little slower on the export, but a lot of people do want PDFs. And there's our invoice exported as a PDF. Again, like we were saying, this needs to be tidied up. It's also possible to do other things to kind of get your data a bit nicer in the invoice. So for example, total or the price and total really should have, if you're doing in euro, could have a euro symbol in front of it. So it's in Word that you would decide when and where to do these things. Don't forget as well that we can use our numeric field parameter. So for example, let's say total excluding VAT. I'll just go to parameters for this field and I'll go make this a numeric field, defaults to 2 decimal places. And I'll do the same with the including VAT. So we just edit the latest record again. And we just add one more line item just to trigger the change. So let's just say teaching, teaching advanced, number of units, cost per unit is, so line item cost. And as you can see, that this will round it to the 2 decimal places. And when we export the template, we'll see it rounded. Obviously, I haven't uploaded the new template with the euro symbols and stuff like that, but that's pretty much it. In the next video, we're just going to show you a few little extra bits that can really get this over the line and make it a more efficient invoicing system. Thank you. Goodbye.